Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, we'll be talking about, as you can tell by the title, a pattern that will be supportive of several large storm systems, and there is a ton to this. And I mean, honestly, just looking at the Weather Ready Nation map, which currently represents what the threats are, a lot of the colors are green, and that indicates flash flood watches. Now, this is again obviously from the remnants of Ida. Here we have monsoons, and all of this moisture either from the tropics, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and large low pressure starting to circle down from the Arctic will produce a pattern that will be conducive of large systems. And when I say big storm systems, that doesn't necessarily mean that that system will be producing tons of flooding, tons of damage, powerful system, just that it will be affecting a lot of folks. There will definitely be potential for localized areas to see damage and whatnot, but definitely not trying to be a alarmist or whatnot. This is very, very, very usual as we go into fall. Pretty much repeats itself every year, at least for a few weeks. So we'll be talking about that. If you guys have watched this video, like the other videos on this channel, consider subscribing, consider liking the video. It helps out the channel, and obviously don't do that just because I told you so. And if you have any comments, concerns, whatever you may want to ask, leave them down below. I will be more than willing to answer them. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, a lot of flash flood watches. I do want to point out, look at that. First, actually, no, the second advisory for these folks. There was already one across the Idaho Panhandle a few weeks back. But yeah, I mean, the temperatures could be getting down to that morning lows in the 30s across those far northern locations. Still a bit away in terms of time for the rest of the country and really even the mountains, but definitely an indication that, well, it's the end of August. The beginning of fall is tomorrow. Meteorological fall starts September 1st, and astronomical, which most people go by, starts September 21st. Okay, so I do want to say that there is obviously, where there is cool, there's obviously still signs of summer, and that will linger. You could see heat advisories, heat waves, where unfortunately Ida went through, and that is not helping. I guess you could argue that it helps with the evaporation of the soil, but honestly, it just makes cleanup a lot worse. These temperatures are rather dangerous, and it's not something that you'd want to be out in. Notice up to 105, which is obviously very, very deadly if out for a prolonged period of time. So I do want to say that we have a storm prediction center outlook for tomorrow, or today. It's light, but mainly across the areas where the remnants are. Tomorrow, enhanced. Again, mainly from the enhanced area across Maryland into Delaware, southern Jersey, and Pennsylvania. That is from the remnants. But we also have a second area across the plains into South Dakota and Nebraska. Now, that is a separate system. This is a system obviously combined with Ida, and yeah, that's mainly from the tropical moisture. So again, whether it's from the tropics, a system from the north, or the monsoons, there's a lot of storms with this upcoming pattern, if you will. And Thursday, notice that the marginal, and it's across Nebraska and Kansas, and it leaves the Northeast finally alone with no real threats. So let's take a look at the GFS model, and let me put this forward. So notice the Southeast, the Northeast, seeing that remnant, so that's already one system, Ida. Then we have that giant low pressure that is situated across central, even central northern Canada, and it's just really, it's cold front that is affecting the United States into South Dakota, the plains, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska. Definitely some much needed rainfall, especially for folks down here. Up here, they've gotten quite a bit of rain, but they'll definitely still take a bit of it. Notice that we do see that cold front kind of start to disappear. However, a lot of that energy gets absorbed into a new low pressure, a new wave, if you will, that is really right now situated across British Columbia, even off the coast. But by Friday and into Saturday, it comes on, and look at that, an explosion of convection across Iowa, Nebraska, potentially. This could differ a bit between the models, a bit further towards the north, the south. And yeah, a widespread rain event. This does develop into a decently sized system. It turns more into an upper level low, and you can see spinning away large air masses of, or large quantities of air that is going to be a bit cooler, so that's nice. Definitely some continued shower chances. Nothing severe, most likely just some nice light showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder with this. And that is by Monday, Tuesday. So already, a lot of things to unpack. But on the cusp of that kind of cold front and on the potential ridging, which starts to show right here, we see another wave. And this one looks to be potentially severe weather. Look at that. Michigan, Ohio, really into Cleveland. Again, this is really still new information and data. It's not too far out, but for such events, it's just at this point confident enough to tell that it will be occurring somewhere, some sort of precipitation. Whether or not it's a severe outbreak and where is a bit hard to tell, but notice that that definitely is a vigorous. And surprisingly, or maybe some would even argue counterintuitively, this would be occurring in the morning hours. So that is just to show you that it's more of the atmosphere that is prime, not necessarily using the daytime heating, which usually the events like that are a bit more serious, as they don't just rely on daytime heating. But notice it does turn into a low pressure, starts bringing in a decent amount of chilly air, showers, storms, and it's reluctant. You could see even maybe some signs of lake effect across the warm waters of the lakes, just a bit of some chilly air, and look at that. I mean, that's potentially some lake effect rain. And then notice that does slide off into the northeast, but right behind that, into the tropic kind of left behind, slides another system from the north. Very weak at first, but with the help of the Gulf and the tropics, you could see the monsoons adding some of that precipitation right there. It drags up another cold front. We have still that first one remaining across the northeast. So many systems. Notice it does drag in quite a bit of chilly air behind it. And look, it actually at the end of tail of it, there's a tropical wave. That's all I'm going to call it at this point. Way too early to say whether or not it's a depression, a storm, maybe a hurricane. It's all a possibility, but for now, some sort of a tropical system. That's probably the most accurate to coin it. And notice that we do have this low pressure. That is indicative of some chilly air. Probably not, bone chilling, but definitely a nice fall air mass. If you live across the Midwest, this will feel relatively chilly. Look at that, 40s potentially according to the GFS. And again, that's not even that below average. That's around 15 degrees below average. It's just based on the heat that we've been seeing, 15 below average seems very cold, and I mean, indeed it is. Look at that, 40s, 50s. The AC is running pretty much here every day, and here you won't be able to have the windows open. But yeah, you could see maybe even some early frosts across southern Canada, maybe into North Dakota. Some frost advisories being issued, but obviously the days aren't cold. 60s, 50s, well, depends on what you kind of qualify as cold. But yeah, the heat gets suppressed to the south. Look at that, 39, 36. Definitely a chillier air mass after these systems. And that's the thing. Right now, the models aren't supportive of a large, cool pattern. I would say models because the GFS is, but not all of the models are the GFS. That's why I can't just kind of put it all into one. But again, after this storm system, look at it, becomes an upper level low. Really, it begins as one and just really starts driving a lot of this air down to the south. And it's often with these upper level lows that you see a lot of air mass changes because of smaller surface lows. They can't really do that, but these have a large wingspan usually, and they are much more stronger. And you can see it creates a trough. And we do have that tropical system across the south, which I don't know if it's this model or another one, takes it up. Okay, so it was a different model run, but in one of the models, it develops a cold front, and it takes up that system kind of along the cold front, developing a again another chance for heavy rain and whatnot. But notice, look at that cold front right there. Some showers, storms into Oklahoma, Arkansas, the south. Obviously, the tropics adding on a lot of moisture, as I mentioned. A lot of factors going into play here, and last year we saw a very active pattern around this time as well. Next, 384-hour rainfall. Unfortunately, the only areas getting avoided are the ones that need it the most across Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana. Thankfully, at least it won't be too hot for prolonged periods like it was during the summer. Maybe even some chillier periods during the next 384 hours. But really, that doesn't really make it an impact because of how they need the rain, not cool temperatures or whatnot. Definitely not the heat. The Southwest, not bad. You can see that across even extreme Southern California, getting some rainfall. California and rainfall at this point almost seem like oil and water. They just you don't say them in the same sentence. But you can see right there, we have some rain into the Southwest. Definitely some chances, continued chances. And obviously, if the tropics were to be active, a lot of that could be making an impact on the flooded areas already. So that's not good news. Northeast, lots of rain as well. And you can see more is expected. Maybe not as profound as what we're seeing in the next few days. But notice across the upper plains, Midwest, generous rains. Obviously, the GFS is just putting out kind of random amounts, but it's showing that there isn't really a giant favored area. Like, well, I guess there is a south, but overall, a nice wet pattern for many. Obviously, not for everyone, unfortunately, but for many. And I guess you could say that's a good thing. Let's take a look at a model run prior from the GFS. Notice this one did not bring up as much tropical moisture into the south, but it did still show a general similar kind of trend. Canada, the U.S., the northern plains, the southwest, the southeast, northeast seeing decent to potentially sufficient amounts of rain. And it does dry out. You can see right there, Oklahoma's dry, right, with the 6 o'clock model run. With the newer one, it's not. So these differences are obviously occurring. And you can see this is the model run even prior to that. A bit more scattered across the south and west here, and a bit more towards the Great Lakes. Now, let's take a look at a Canadian. Let me just show you its precip outlook 240 hours out, not as far as the 384 hours at the GFS I was showing you. Notice it does favor quite a bit of rain here. I think this was the model that shows a lot of tropical activity. And yeah, that definitely would not be good. But notice it does still show decent rains across the north and south, and oftentimes underestimates these amounts and keeps them a bit more local than they actually are. So I don't like this model too much for its precip outlook, but in terms of its kind of radar, its simulated radar, what I'm showing you right now, it's definitely good. So notice there's Ida, right? There's our system across the plains. Again, going on at the same time, some storms, possibly some obviously severe. Then it doesn't show that kind of reinvigoration of rain that the GFS shows across the Great Lakes and Midwest that again the GFS showed. So that's definitely interesting, but it does still bring in a shot of cooler air, not as significant as the second one that the GFS showed. But look at that, little precip chances right there. And look, this is the model that showed this. So notice a low pressure forms, severe weather potentially with that right there, similar to what if you recall it around this same time frame, the GFS showed a severe weather potential across Michigan and Ohio. This model, Canadian, shows it a bit differently. It develops a tropical wave at the same time across the Gulf of Mexico, and what it does with this is, well, probably the worst case scenario. It does intensify it into a decent system, brings it across very similar areas, and drags that way up along the northeast coast. And this storm is obviously moisture laden. We have another tropical system coming ashore right there, or getting into the view. Again, look at that lake effect rain potentially. You can see obviously that's a very chillier air mass, and that is indicated by the anomalies. And notice that they are definitely present. And yeah, I mean 50s, 60s across the south, that would be nice, you know. So that's definitely something good. But notice warmer across the north and northwest, unfortunately. So that's not really as much of a good thing. But let's take a glance now at the last model I want to show you. The European goes out to 240, similar, or really exactly just like the Canadian, not as far as the GFS. There's Ida, there's our system to the north, across the central to even, central to southern Canada. And there's our lots of rain into the plains, lots of showers, storms. It does develop a bit of a system into the weekend. If you recall, the GFS really blossomed it across the Great Lakes. The European does a combination of what the Canadian and the GFS does. It shows a bit more than the Canadian, shows a bit less than the GFS, so kind of the modest scenario. But notice that it does show still continued activity, kind of a stalled out, really just a low pressure right here, potentially a wave to the south, starting to attach itself to its cold front. But around that same time frame, again, Monday to Tuesday, when the GFS and Canadian showed that severe weather potential, especially the GFS, the European does show activity, and it does develop a low pressure out ahead of a trough, which would bring cool air, and it's just not as significant. You could see this, it's more of a surface low. It's nothing too significant, and it really just doesn't do much. However, you could see that there is activity from the south, the tropics influenced by that. And again, this is more of the quieter run from the European. Some of the previous European runs were way more active, and notice that it does show that cool air present across the south. And I do want to show you that actually 2-meter temperature anomaly, that all models do support a cooler wave at around that time frame where the medium breaks into the long range. But prior to that, really more warm than cool. Definitely, pockets of it, especially you could see earlier on across the northwest and maybe the southwest where the cloud cover from the monsoon is present. But notice that towards the end, it's more of a widespread, a cooler air mass. You could see covering a generous amount of the states, obviously not everyone. And similar to the Canadian, it shows a lot of the northwest and southwestern Canada being very, very warm, and the southwestern U.S. likewise. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show you. Let's take a look at the total accumulated precipitation from the European model. Not as high as what the GFS showed, really about as high as what the Canadian shows, and usually the Canadian underestimates a lot of things, and that's really because, again, the European, with this model run in particular, is not showing a lot of activity. It obviously does show a few pockets of that very heavy rain. This is mainly from Ida. Obviously, monsoons dealing with decent, the southwest dealing with decent monsoon rains. Southern Canadian prairies picking up some rain, not I would say amazing amounts everywhere, but definitely some could see obviously a lot more than others. Same thing with the plains, a few locations getting a lot, a few others not so much, and that's just kind of going to be the inconsistency with this. But I do want to say that, again, this is very hard to predict, sometimes even 2-3 days out in advance, let alone really a whole week. And this is the prior model run from the European. Notice it showed a lot more rain here. So again, this is just a 12-hour difference, and look how different that looks. This is another 12-hour difference. Notice there are, again, some differences drying out more across the Great Lakes and showing more across the Southwest, versus the newer ones not showing as much. But what if it is consistent with something? It's like the heavy rain across the Northeast, and yeah, that's definitely not good news. But notice Pennsylvania just really getting hammered with this 7, 8, 6. I mean, 7 to potentially some double-digit amounts of rain are possible. And if we were to take a look at the radar. Let's take a look at this radar from WGN, my local weather office. I want to show you why this is so dangerous, and just take a look at this right here. Let me see if I could zoom out a bit more. Okay, so notice that right there we have come on, what can we do here? There we go. A bunch of storms, right? Showers, systems, nothing too extraordinary, but look how slow moving they are. And in some places it's completely stationary. Look at Davenport, seeing that rain for a while, and they're very, very slow moving. Let me show you a very good example of just stationary kind of area of storms. Look at that right there. Say that county, just a few counties east of Columbus. Look at that rain. For the past, this is now 4 hours, so that's a large time period. Look, we had one wave pass through, another wave, and look, it's just very, very slow. And yes, these aren't blockbuster supercells and whatnot, but under any of these cells, there's decent to potentially very, very heavy rainfall, especially, from Dresden to Cambridge. Look at the area in between them. Just been seeing rain for a while now, and you can see that was a prior area. Now this is the new area, and you can see it's been just going on. And even with this in this time frame right here, what I'm showing you, that could dump 1 to 2 inches. If the soils are wet, that could cause some flash flooding, even maybe just some flooding, not even flash flooding because of how wet the soils are. And yeah, there's a lot more to the south, and this will continue kind of spawning these storms, showers as it moves into the northeast. By the way, regarding this little system across the Midwest, this was not forecasted to really be raining across these areas. Yesterday, it was a forecast of showing some storms, not this far to the north. So, again, this just shows you that the accuracy of the models sometimes is a bit poor 24 hours out, let alone what we're looking at, which is the long range. But yeah, notice it does show some significance right there. Look at the southwest also. Finally, some rain in California. Not good, though. They're saying, that area's probably seen 2 to 3 in the past hour inches of rain. Look at that. So that's definitely causing some flash flooding. Some more gentle rain across the southwest, which is definitely better. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya.